Welcome back to Cheating Stories Hub. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate each one of you. Before we dive into today's compelling story, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. Now, let's get into this tale of betrayal, cunning strategy, and ultimate triumph. It was our son's birthday, and we decided to gather close family and friends at a cozy cafe to make the celebration festive yet intimate. I booked a table at our favorite place, invited a few close friends, Ava's parents, and of course, my wife's stepbrother, Max. I'd never liked Max, but Ava always insisted he should be present at important family events. Reluctantly, I agreed, as I had grown used to her decisions sometimes being more about principle than logic, though they often tested my patience. The evening started wonderfully. Our son was ecstatic with all the attention, the gifts, and the party atmosphere. Ava looked stunning but seemed distracted, often stepping away with her phone, citing work or minor urgent matters. I chose not to let it bother me. After all, it was our son's day, and I didn't want to ruin it with unnecessary suspicions. But when Max arrived an hour late, Ava's demeanor shifted entirely. She lit up, her eyes sparkling with a joy I hadn't seen from her in a long time. Max approached the table with his usual confident grin, acting as though he were the guest of honor. Ava's mood visibly brightened as they dove into lively conversation. I couldn't ignore the warmth in her gaze as she looked at him, a warmth I hadn't felt directed at me for years. With each passing toast and shared laugh, a strange tension grew between them. It became hard to dismiss the unease creeping into my mind. As the evening progressed, the conversations among guests flowed smoothly, but my focus kept drifting back to Ava and Max. At one point, I noticed them stepping away from the table together, supposedly to check on something at the counter. My heart sank as I watched them exchange what appeared to be a private, amused glance before disappearing into the hallway. When they returned, I tried to shake off the unease and focus on our son, who was delightedly opening his presents. Yet, the lingering tension between Ava and Max continued to gnaw at me. The moment of clarity came when Max raised his glass for a toast. Smiling slyly, he said, "To our little birthday star, who truly has the best of everything." He paused, glancing meaningfully at Ava and then at me. Though maybe not only from his father, his words lingered in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. I froze, unsure if I just imagined the insinuation. Ava gave a faint smile, avoiding my gaze entirely. Instead, she looked at Max with an expression that seemed to confirm his cryptic words. A cold weight settled in my chest. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I tried to dismiss the growing doubts in my mind, but found myself watching their every interaction. Ava's subtle touches on Max's arm, their shared jokes, everything seemed to carry a deeper meaning. Later that evening, as the guests began to leave, Max lingered. Ava seemed in no rush for him to go. They chatted animatedly by the door, their voices dropping to hushed tones when I approached. I felt like an intruder in my own home. Over the next few days, Ava's behavior became increasingly suspicious. She would leave the house more frequently, claiming it was for work meetings or errands. Once, I followed her, keeping a safe distance. She met Max at a small cafe on the other side of town. They sat close, their heads leaning in as they spoke in hushed tones. At one point, Ava laughed, and Max reached out to touch her hand. I turned away, my stomach churning, unable to watch any longer. The next morning, as Ava stepped out for another one of her urgent errands, I couldn't ignore the voice in my head telling me something was wrong. Her phone lay on the console table in the hallway. I'd always trusted her, but this time felt different. Against every instinct, I picked it up and opened her messages with Max. At first, the conversation seemed harmless, discussions about family events and light-hearted banter. But as I scrolled further, the tone changed. Phrases like "always here for you," "you're the only one who understands," jumped out at me. Then came the message that shattered my world. "You know I'll always be here, Ava. He'll never even notice." My hands trembled as I reread those words. What wouldn't I notice? What had they been hiding? The further I scrolled, the clearer it became. Their messages weren't just affectionate, they were intimate. Ava called Max her special one and wrote things that went far beyond what was appropriate between siblings, even step-siblings. It was undeniable. Something deeper had been going on between them. That afternoon, Ava came home and found me sitting in the living room, phone in hand. She noticed my expression immediately and froze. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I looked up, my voice low but firm. "Why does Max think he can say things like that about our son? And why are you sending him messages like these?" Her eyes flashed with panic before she quickly masked it with indignation. "You went through my phone? Are you out of your mind? After everything I do for this family, this is how you repay me? Don't turn this around on me," I snapped. "You've been acting distant, disappearing, and now I find messages like these. What's really going on between you and Max?" Ava's composure crumbled slightly, but she quickly recovered, her voice icy. "Max is the one who truly understands me, unlike you. You're always busy, always absent. Maybe if you paid more attention, I wouldn't need to seek support elsewhere." Her words stung like a slap. "Support? Is that what you call this?" I asked bitterly. "You're betraying me with your stepbrother, Ava. Do you even hear yourself?" She crossed her arms, her tone cold and dismissive. "He's not my real brother, in case you forgot. Feelings don't always come from where you expect them." I stared at her, stunned by her audacity. "You're destroying our family," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "What about our son? Have you even thought about what this will do to him?" For a moment, a flicker of guilt crossed her face, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "He'll adapt," she said flatly. "Kids are resilient." Her nonchalance was the final straw. "You can't justify this, Ava. You've made your choice, but I'll make sure our son knows the truth. He deserves that much." Panic flashed in her eyes. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "I would," I replied. "He has a right to know who his mother truly is." Over the next few days, Ava tried to twist the narrative, subtly turning our son against me. She began planting seeds of doubt, telling him that I was overworked and distant. But I stayed firm. I spent as much time as possible with our son, taking him out for walks, playing games, and helping him with school projects. I wanted to show him, through my actions, that I was still his father, no matter what. One evening, I sat him down and told him everything. I spoke calmly, ensuring he knew it wasn't his fault and that he didn't have to choose between us. His reaction was a mix of shock, sadness, and anger, but he thanked me for my honesty. That conversation marked a turning point. While the truth shattered his image of a perfect family, it also strengthened the bond between us. We spent hours talking about his feelings, and I reassured him that I would always be there for him. As for Ava, her manipulations no longer held any power. She realized that her attempts to control the narrative had failed. Max stopped coming around, likely realizing that his presence was no longer welcome. I had faced the painful truth and emerged stronger, ready to rebuild a life of honesty and trust for my son and myself.